Okay, I believe from the courtesy of those who joined us in time, we will be starting. Welcome everybody. I'm very happy to see you. I'm happy to see this international crowd of service design enthusiasts, and we are launching our second service design marathon. So ready, steady, go. This is a marathon. This is an event which is run by the Service Design Network, by Ukrainian chapter of Service Design Network, and I would like to introduce you Katya Zayko and myself. We are co-founders of the Service Design Network Ukraine. Service Design Network, if you do not know, is an international organization which unites service design enthusiasts and professionals around the world. It consists of almost 50 chapters in different countries. And Service Design Marathon is the event about service design cases. So service designers from across the world will be presenting their cases. And today I'm happy to present Dr. Vidya Priya Rao. She is from India. She is a founder of the innovations marketer Touchpoint, am I right? Consultancy.
Yes.
And she is also a head of Service Design Network India. So she is our colleague in a way. And she will be giving her presentation and present two cases. And I believe I already spoke too much for today. So
Thank you, Oleg, for inviting, and Katrina as well. So today I will be presenting multiple case studies. So the first one is, if we build it, will they come? Now, if we out here means startups, and they here refers to potential customers. So any new startup launching a new product or a service, this is the first concern which the founders would have. We are coming out with something new in the market, which every startup believes that will come and create wonders. But then secretly, they also are afraid, will customers come and buy it? So here I'm sharing my experience with the Indian fintech startup called PhonePesa. So they are in the payment space. I mean, we all understand money. So it's about collecting money, sending money, receiving money, so on and so forth. So what they had envisaged was a B2C solution, a business to consumer solution. How many of you use Google Pay, Apple Pay in your country? You can type a yes or no in the chat box, just for me to get a quick sense. So yes, so something at that point in time, the Indian government was not allowing a Google Pay or Apple Pay to enter the country, because they were local players who were having a presence, and some of them were there for 2 to 3 years, even before PhonePesa was wanting to come into the market. But eventually the B2C solution never took off for multiple reasons, and I'll share that why. And then when they reached to us, we helped them launch a new offering in the payment space for the business to business segment, and service design was a key enabler for their success. And that has set them on the growth path. So PhonePesa had come up with the idea, because every startup comes up with an idea, and the idea out here was a universal consumer app. You know, now every bank is trying to come up with a mobile app for their consumers. There are external fintech players like Google Pay, Apple Pay, and so many other pays. An individual has so many credit cards, will have multiple bank accounts. And, we all know about coupons, the deals and offers that we get from merchants, which we end up keeping. If it's a male, they end up keeping it in their wallet. And if it's a female, we keep in the lady's handbag. And God save us, I can never find a coupon on time because everything, all the contents of my laptop will be out, but I would not have found it at the hour of need. So they said we'll consolidate everything out in one single app. Great idea. So even when they approached us, we were fine. And believe me, at that time, we knew nothing about mobile payment. For that matter, at that time, I was still on a BlackBerry handset. I did not have a phone which can download the app. And that was a challenge, and we accepted it. And so using service design, the minute we realized, because we also parallelly were doing our homework to understand the industry, we looked at their competitors, we looked at what is happening globally, we looked at the regulations in the local government, and we realized very soon that this was not going to take off because there are plenty of challenges. While the idea might be great, and if they were the first player in the market, it wouldn't have been much of a problem. But here, they are the number 10th player at that point in time in the market. There were 4 players aggressive in different parts of India, having huge marketing budgets. And here, they are talking about a solution and talking about great plans of coming out with the product in the India market. So we used a very simple tool, a day in life of a mobile user. So we select a customer category, and then we plotted from morning 8 o'clock to night 12. If someone was being given a mobile to use, make payments on a particular day, what would be the kind of payments this person would end up doing? And this helped them realize that the number of integrations with the merchants, both physical shops, one-off shops, it could be chains, it could be e-commerce players. The list was huge. And also at that time, there was a regulatory challenge in the country. You could only spend 10,000 Indian rupees, and roughly about $70 odd is equal $1 is equal to about 70 odd rupees. You can just check what is the latest currency conversion, which was hardly anything. Because if you looked at some of the items out here, purchase a camera. I mean, a basic camera with some decent features, and someone who's working in a company would at least spend, $150 buying a camera, even if it's a basic one. So if you add up to the spend, we realized that it was going to be a tough task. So, we also help them understand. To help them understand, we ask them few basic questions. So is your effort aligned with the solution to create value and drive growth? Yes, in paper, they were talking of providing great value to the customers. But to make it realizable, the number of integrations and the number of touch points that they had to interact with was huge, and they were not ready for that. Was the conception of the solution or the solution specification at fault? Yes, because while they were so focused on building the front end, They actually had not even started building the backend, which would be used by the internal teams, the operations, the customer success teams. When we looked at the database to integrate it with marketing automation platforms, which would help us understand the customer behavior and send customized messages. I'm sure all of you receive very customized, personalized messages from your banks or a Google Pay or any other mobile payment provider service would be using. The backend was not ready. There were also some regulatory hurdles because they were trying to bet on a solution which the government had not yet given something called UPI, Universal Payment Interface. I'm not getting into the technicalities of that. Anyone interested can do a Google search and read more on that. And the government had made very clear, if and when they launch, it will be first open only to the banks. The fintech will not be allowed to use that concept. We quickly realized, because when we went and we asked them, have you gone and spoken to the users? It was something that there were a lot of heated, passionate discussions, in the rooms. Boards would get filled, countless hours of discussions. They were so much in love with it. But market realities were very different, what competition was doing. So when we took them out and make them speak with some end customers as well as the merchants with whom they would have to integrate, they got a completely different story. So they also found it very difficult to get funding from investors. While the founders had a good, solid financial background based on where they came from, but obviously the kind of product they are trying to launch requires huge amount of money, which required investment. And the investors started raising the question which we had asked them. And when the investor asked, they realized that it's not going to happen. But at the same time, so what is it that they do? So this is a quote which I love by David Bell, professor. So whenever you're trying to, come out with a new offering, go after customers which are underserved or neglected. And especially if you're a startup, that is a rule, because you don't have marketing muscle. Often you are dependent on investors to invest money to kickstart, your platform. And the basic rule was ignored. So typically when you realize the two ways, either you pivot or you preserve and say, no, we will still go ahead and do, and then, maybe in the end fail. We said, what, let's look at the experience of the founders. They have excellent knowledge about payment. They have good relationships with banks, the regulators. And it's not that they didn't have a strong value proposition. The payment backend that they had built was very robust. We started looking for opportunities. And our agency started pushing them actually to consider a new B2B solution. So we said, we will shift instead of from B2B to B2C. Please embrace service design, because you've realized that not understanding the customer has been the reason why the B2C could not taken off. Because had you started with that, possibly we would have done something else, found some other niche within that space. And it's very important for you to focus on the outcome. An outcome is not a PPT presentation or a meeting, getting a meeting with the regulatory body. That's an output. An outcome is a successful launch of a solution which will be accepted by your end users, and you're going to have people willing to pay for the solution. So the new challenge looks very complex, right? Simplifying the complexity. So, how many of you look at your bank statement when you are filing your tax returns at the end of the year, and whoever is helping you file your returns will send a lot of comments. Can you please explain this transaction? And there's nothing written out there in the history and you get lost. You can't relate where you spent, who gave you the money. You suddenly realize there is a credit of so many dollars into your account. And the government at the end of the day is only bothered with the credits. They're not bothered how much is debited from your account. So yes, now imagine now this going to the business. Day in, day out, and they work with multiple banks, and it's not one transaction a day, but hundreds of transactions, the kind of challenge that they face. So we realized that it was very important that B2B companies needed a more modern payment strategy. So let's look at what were some of the challenges that we arrived at in our drawing board. Staggering payment fee. Now imagine if the same paper check was continuing. You would use a courier or post to send. So it can take anywhere between 1 to 5 days for the post to reach you. If you're sending with a normal government post, it takes a longer time. If you send it by courier, and that to a branded one who provide service, delivering it in 24 hours, like FedEx or a few other companies out here in India, you can still get it in a day's time. Otherwise, it can even take 2 to 3 days. And imagine if your person who is going to deposit the paper checks in the bank is already left for the day. It reaches on a Friday. Imagine cash, which was supposed to be in your bank account, is lying on your table, but you are unable to use it. Also, in India, smaller merchants, smaller businesses do not get credit cards very easily. So as a result of which, especially in the manufacturing segment, we realized that when customers, the retailers or distributors want to pick up material from the principal, the manufacturer, they have to pay money upfront. And sometimes they don't have that kind of money to rotate because their bank accounts don't have that amount of money. So they can only stock a limited amount. But if they have the facility to use a credit card for making a payment, that gives them that cash flow rotation, as one would call it. So the question was, how do we eliminate the transaction cost? How do we ensure that the delay that happens in collecting that payment and realizing the payment, how can we cut down that time so the minute the customer pays, I get it in my account and I can use that money for 20 other things? Because it doesn't matter on the shape and size of the business. Every business needs money to run. There was also a lot of manual effort because big companies would have 15, 20 people just sitting and reconciling because the invoicing system and the bank account statement were not integrated. Now imagine you have a merchant to whom you have raised an invoice for $1,000, and then some good return has happened because there was some defect in the product, and you have to give $250 back. And this person has raised another request, and then you have given another invoice for $2,000, and this person pays you $2,000. So you don't know against which invoice the payment has happened. Plus, there was also, the tax calculations. At that point in time, when this solution was involved in India, we had two tax structures. We had the central government, which would be collected by the center, and there were local taxes which would be taken by the local states. So the tax was into two pieces. Managing that, huge number of people would be sitting and doing that. The next was, every business looks at what is the daily cash outstanding. How much money can we get today from the market? response, so that you ensure that every meeting is a successful meeting. And that was the success of how the growth happened. So the company was established in 2014, and they won in 2017 Innovation Award by NASSCOM. And just this year, they've received private equity funding. I'm not in a position to share the amount. And by 2018, in less than 3 years, within 3 years of their launch, they had managed to acquire a huge customer base, which changed the way they operate. So thank you. Now I'll take any questions that you have in the first case study before I move on into the next one. And I hope the pace was okay, because I do understand a lot of you do understand English, but it gets a little difficult if someone speaks very fast. So I tried my best to speak slowly. So I'm open to questions. So Oleg, anything in the chat?
I'll ask colleagues if they have questions to put them in the chat. We will pick them. And meanwhile, I would like to ask one question from myself. First of all, thank
Sure.
you. Thank you very much for the case. I like it very much. I like the way you pivoted. And from my experience, startups often overlook B2B opportunities because, I mean, if you are a private person, you don't know the problem of other businesses. So my question is, how this opportunity come to mind? Whose was the idea, and how come it appeared?
Okay, the idea in this case was ours, because we saw the passion they had, we saw the understanding they had, but just because they were a little late entrant on the market, we realized that they were not going to succeed, and the kind of investments they required was not possible. But again, though we were not technical, but we have that much of understanding of the technology, and sitting with the technical team, we understood the product backend. And that gave us the idea. And because we were doing a lot of studies and research ourselves, because it's important that as a designer, we also equally, come up to speed, because you're the advisor, you're the coach. So we saw this huge opportunity. While B2C, there is huge opportunity, but the volume game is very high, because a consumer can make a $10 payment and a $20 payment. But in a business, the dollar amount that you're talking about is huge. And in a fintech, after the bank takes the money, after the Visa, MasterCard takes the money, they get left with a very small amount. And it's a volume game. This we understood on the first day, because we asked the customer, how do you make money? We understood that, and we realized when we did a little math of business, we understood, hey, there's a huge opportunity. The kind of volume of business that you're talking about, for you to grow, you get it more from business. Yes, it's a little difficult to enter there. But B2C is even more difficult because of the competition, the amount of money you have to spend, the amount of money you have to spend in advertising, television, internet, so on and so forth, is huge. Your marketing budgets will run into millions of dollars. So here you have a solution where you don't have to spend that much of money on marketing, and at the same time you make better money. So it was about convincing them, showing them the potential, and then finally, when they realized something else was not working, they saw that this had great potential. We already had connects with people in the industry. So we actually took them for meetings. We set those initial meetings, got that, and then the rest is history now.
I mean, you are lucky to have such open client, open to the new ideas. And again, you achieved fantastic results, like 3 million.
It's a mix. Oleg, you're always not this lucky, but it was good in this case. They listened to us. They trusted us as their advisors. So that matters most when you work with them. because you have to trust in the design process, you have to trust, in what, at least here, it's about being open to different perspectives. You can always reject an idea.
Yes.
All right.
Vidya, I have one more question, which is rather administrative. I wanted to discuss with you because we have not so much time left. Would it make sense to present a second case now, or would it make sense maybe just to make another special session for the people so they can join another day? So we are not in rush with presenting this one.
I suggest we can do it another day, Oleg, because that gives time to talk about in detail and I don't have to rush through it, because that's also something very interesting and unique to learn from. While I'm not getting into it, but just to give people a flavor, this is about a SaaS company, a software as a service company. And the next question, which typical startup space, if they have a product idea and they come up with a solution, they've launched it and they've started getting customers. But then the next question is, how do we grow? So this case study, the first one was about, I'm building something, will people come? And this was, we've caught their attention, but you know what? We are not growing. So that's a typical next challenge. So we could always have another session. You could let me know the dates and we could present. So I'll now be open to taking any questions on this case study from the participants.
Super. So again, for our participants, we will agree with Vidya on another convenient day and we will inform you so you can join us again and listen to the second case. I know some details because we spoke about the case with Vidya and I think that one is amazing too, because I mean, it is another very typical startup issue as Vidya mentioned. And for the first one, feel free to ask the questions. You remember that the only question you shouldn't be asking is the one you didn't ask. So, I mean, please feel free. I mean, the only stupid question you didn't ask. And I'd probably start with one more question, which is, how difficult was to uncover those B2B needs? Is it, I mean, how open are people to talk about these like business issues?
Okay. See, when you get to meet the right set of people, it's easy. And as the initial test customers, prospects that we had chosen were who were good friends or we knew them in the past, it made it easy for them to open up. But then subsequently, when we built our paper prototype and we had something meaningful to talk about, and it was a pain that they were facing day in, day out, and there was no solution available in the market. You remember the quote which I had put of Professor David Bell? We had hit the nail because we exactly hit where there was no solution in the market at that point in time. And the banks were least bothered because they could have done some amount of problem solving by ensuring the comment field that we typically have when we are doing an online payment, or even at the back of the check in India, we have to write, scribble few lines. And they also scan it in the OCR documents. But they never share that field with the customer when they send the statement. They could have minimized the pain, but then that not being done, that gave us a golden opportunity. And once in the building that solid paper prototype